It's that time of year when danger may be lurking around the corner. Welcome everyone to another exciting episode of Everything Zen, where we discuss everything in the Zenescope universe from Spirit Hunters and the Watcher to the Black Sable, Paradise Court, Gretel, and so much more. This is Zenescope. I'm your host, Mark Sells, and we're so glad to have you along with us for our October edition of Everything Zen. For all of you Rings of Power and the Lord of the Rings fans out there, J.R.R. Tolkien once wrote this about October. I sit beside the fire, and of all that I have seen, of meadow flowers and butterflies in summers that have been, of yellow leaves and gossamer in autumns that there were, with morning mist and silver sun and wind upon my hair. Did you know that fall's vivid colors are actually hidden underneath summer's green? That the main reason for the color change is not the chilly weather, but light, or rather the lack of it. The green color of leaves disappears when photosynthesis from sunlight slows down and the chlorophyll breaks down. Trees with a lot of direct sunlight will produce red leaves, while other trees may turn yellow, orange, or brown. Something to think about while you're out leaf peeping. In addition to Halloween, October is chock full of delicious holidays. It's National Pizza, Popcorn, Dessert, and Cookie Month, and a very special month for all of our Zenophiles because it's National Book Month. So grab your pizza and cookies and find a comfy chair and a great comic or graphic novel. It's cozy book season. Some quick fun facts about Halloween. Americans spend over $3 billion on candy every year for All Hallows Eve, and Illinois is the pumpkin state, growing more than 500 million pumpkins annually. The first jack-o'-lantern was carved out of a turnip. Candy corn was originally named chicken feed. For many, it might even taste like it. But Skittles are still the top-selling candy. And lastly, finding a spider on Halloween night is widely considered good luck. Dear Great Pumpkin, I am looking forward to your arrival on Halloween night. I hope you will bring me lots of presents. Signed, Linus Van Pelt. If you're a fan of Peanuts, The Great Pumpkin, and Charlie Brown, well, on October 2nd, 1950, Charles M. Schulz published the very first Peanuts comic. More memorable days in October include the Salem witch trials ending on October 12, 1692. Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne was first published in 1926 in October. Walt Disney was founded on October 16, 1923 by Walt and his brother Roy. Grand Theft Auto 3 was released on October 22, 2001, creating a new genre of open-world action video games and spurring controversy around video game violence. The Smurfs were introduced on October 23, 1958 by Peyo. Microsoft released the first version of Word on October 25, 1983. And let's not forget, the city of brotherly love and home to Zenescope Entertainment, Philadelphia, was founded on October 27, 1682. Famous October birthdays include Kate Winslet, Elizabeth Shue, Matt Damon, Eminem and Snoop Dogg, Ryan Reynolds, Winona Ryder, and Julia Roberts. Coming up on this month's podcast, we're discussing Zenescope's most controversial character, Cinderella. Noah's got some terrific Cindy-themed prizes to share with you in a little bit, and we'll be joined by Zenescope publisher Dave Franchini to learn more about the princess turned serial killer. Later on, we'll be joined by C.J. Perry, a wrestling superstar, actress, and dancer who winds up in a crazy social experiment with Dennis Rodman, Frankie Muniz, Kim Coles, and many more. 8 celebrities, 1 house, no filter, and VH1's reboot of The Surreal Life. That's all coming up on this spooky, slashy, sensational edition of Everything Zen. And it all starts right now. No matter how your heart is grieving, if you keep on believing, the dream that you wish can come true. From The Little Glass Slipper, a folk tale with thousands of variants throughout the world. It focuses on a young woman living in terrible conditions whose fortunes suddenly change for the better. Dating back to Greek geographer Strabo in 7 BC, this is the story of Rhodopis, a Greek slave girl who ends up marrying the king of Egypt, and the earliest known reference to the story and character we've come to love, Cinderella. The story made its way to Asia around 850 AD as Ye Shen, with many of the story elements we've come to know. And it wasn't until the 1600s that Cinderella found her way to European lands, published by Italian author Giambattista Basile in his Pentamerone, then popularized by Frenchman Charles Perrault in 1697, and later a much darker version by the brothers Grimm in their folktale collection, Grimm's Fairy Tales, in 1812. She's a princess, she has a beautiful dress, glass shoes, and white gloves. She has to overcome her wicked stepmother and stepsisters so she can meet and dance with her prince, then hurry back home before the clock strikes midnight in her golden carriage. That's the magic of Disney. After all, the original versions are much darker, with the stepsisters cutting off their own toes and heels to fit into the glass slipper, and the earliest versions focused on class warfare in much more detail, as an upper-class young woman loses her mother tragically while her father remarries, and she is enslaved by her new family in such a way that her only escape is not through hard work, there's certainly plenty of that to go around, but through marriage, and not just to any man, but a good-looking man with money and influence. This is a theme that we've seen register not just in Cinderella adaptations over the years, but many times from My Fair Lady to Pride and Prejudice to Pretty Woman, just to name a few. In the Zenescope world, Cinderella made her first appearance in Grimm Fairy Tales number 2. She was an awkward teenager, Cindy Monroe, who was subjected to constant ridicule and exclusion throughout high school and college. And on one fateful day, she attends a lecture by Celia Mathers, who shares the darker side of the Cinderella fairy tale. But Cindy misinterprets the meaning of the story and makes it her mission to seek revenge on all those who caused her harm. Furthermore, she is corrupted by the Dark One, whom she makes a bargain with for beauty and power. And while not inherently evil, Cindy's alliances routinely shift. She constantly struggles between good and bad while using the magical sword Carnage to help slice and dice her way through life as the self-proclaimed serial killer princess. This month, the stabby happy princess takes on the Tooth Fairy in an epic Grimm spotlight. And while we don't know the exact how and why, what we do know is that the results of this confrontation will have a ripple effect into the greater Grimm universe. To learn more about Cinderella, her evolution at Zenescope, her sword, her motivations, and her serial killer instincts, we'll be joined by publisher Dave Franchini in a little bit. But right now, let's check in with Noah to see what prizes you could win if you enter our October Podcast Word of the Month contest.
Oh God, it's so horrifying, so terrifying, so paralyzing. It's the Zenescope Word of the Month contest. That's right. Anybody can enter and anyone can win. To play, all you have to do is listen for this sound. When you hear it, we'll reveal this month's secret word or phrase. Email us at info@zenescope.com with that secret word or phrase, and you'll automatically be entered into our raffle. One lucky listener will receive the grand prize, a beautiful Elias Chadzudis monster movie gatefold cover printed on Mystere issue number 2. But that's not all, because we'll also be including the Grimm Tales of Terror Special Edition graphic novel. As an added bonus, we'll also be throwing in the brand new hot-off-the-shelf Cinderella vs. Tooth Fairy supersized comic book. 2 second-place winners will also be selected to receive that special edition graphic novel, in addition to Cinderella's new comic. A handful of runner-ups will randomly be chosen, too, to receive a series of coupon codes that can be used on our web store to purchase comics, collectibles, and more. Don't forget to listen for that secret word or phrase, and email us the answer at info@zenescope.com for your chances to win. But remember, only one submission per person. Back to you, Mark.
Thanks, Noah. Now it's time to open up Grimm Fairy Tales and explore the story of Cinderella. And for that, we're bringing back Zenescope publisher Dave Franchini. Dave is here to talk about the evolution of one of Zenescope's most chaotic characters, Cinderella. How does her origin differ from the versions by Basile, Perrault, and the Brothers Grimm? How did she transition into a serial killer princess? And what's in store for her this month and beyond? She goes head-to-head with the legendary Tooth Fairy. We're here to talk about Cinderella, and Cinderella in the Zenescope world appeared in Grimm Fairy Tales number 2 way back in November 2005. Do you remember or have had conversations with others about how she was introduced? How is she similar or different than the original fairy tale versions by Basile, Perrault, and the Brothers Grimm?
I mean, I wasn't around then. I didn't start Zenescope until 2009. March 2009. So it was before my time. But I mean, I've read everything that we've ever put out. I definitely read that issue, and actually, I've read the Cinderella fairy tale, and it stays pretty close. Besides the modern day stuff, but it stays pretty close with the birds and the crows eating the eyes out and everything like that. That's done at the end of that first issue. And then also a little bit about her, like, I don't know if it deals completely with her mental breakdown, but ours definitely does, and it shows why, because of what happens to her in the real world, and with, like, I think it was her teacher that kind of pushed a little bit different buttons on her. It's definitely our crazy starting point with her, like her deranged side starting in the very first appearance of her. And then I think that the next time she shows up again, like, truly is what, 45, I think, issue 45.
Yeah,
because she's in a sorority, and she's making other sorority sisters pledge and eat hearts, which they don't know.
Something that a lot of sororities do, right?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully human, because otherwise, like, you don't want to be cruel to the animals. But
of course. Did we ever address what happens to the glass slipper?
I don't think so.
Aha.
I don't necessarily know. I don't think we. I mean, maybe we can touch on that later. I don't think we necessarily, like, because the modern day version of it doesn't really have a glass slipper that's like magical or anything like that. It's just kind of looks like that's part of her costume. But then also too, a lot of the stuff that goes into her origin. I think Joe fleshed her out a little bit more. Joe Bruscia, with on her sword. Most people don't know that there's half of a unicorn horn on it. That's half of one of the unicorns, and then the other half. I had to look back. I can't remember where the other half of the unicorn horn, but it's on another weapon as well in the Grimm Universe, and that's what kind of imbues it with magical power and more. It's not creating flames or anything like that. I think it's more just like channeling her craziness and letting her do sword work without actually having any like training.
Right. The sword is Carnage, right?
Yep. That's her baby, among other babies that she gravitates toward.
In 2009, Seth Grahame-Smith wrote Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which started this large trend of mashups. And I was curious if Cinderella Serial Killer Princess was influenced by those types of mashups, and what made you decide to blend sort of fairy tales with this sort of darker true crime type of character.
Well, I mean, with that one, with Serial Killer Princess, actually, that one's a little bit more like how Marvel did Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe.
Oh, right.
That was kind of, and it's like Garth Ennis, and it's a little bit more violent and a little more crazy. And that was really that story was kind of like taking a lead from that, but also giving it a reasoning. It wasn't, we didn't want to copy what they did, but it was more like Cinderella's almost like as insane as Deadpool or Harley Quinn, and we kind of attribute to her like personality towards them, but we want to give her like basically that story was really her rebuilding herself. It was her rebuilding herself from the mind out and kind of basically trying to piece together what was wrong with her, where's she going now, but under the disguise of just murdering our entire Grimm universe very violently and making fun of them as she did it. And it was just really to kind of like to reestablish her in the Grimm universe as this violent, chaotic being that really she's unpredictable. And then as we kind of go on, as we move forward, because after that we did a short story where we basically had her trying to steal things in a Philadelphia port, which sends her back in time, which we've never really explored that part of her story yet. We kind of left it out there as like it's open-ended, but we've hinted at things that she's done in the past, where she had a pet T-Rex. But then when we bring her back for the Bloody Xmas, when Krampus brings her back to dole out his punishment, that kind of he uses his power to kind of bring her back to our present, so he can basically make her suffer for what she's done.
Actors will always tell you it's more fun playing the villain than the hero. Is it more fun writing a villain than a hero?
Cindy is probably one of the easiest and funnest characters to write, just because she says all the terrible things that might even pass through your head. It's fine because like you don't have to defend it, because it's like she's not a good character. She's not like you want her to. She's trying to be good, but she's messing up every time she does it. So like that's what makes it a little more fun, because she can go off the wall and go crazy, and you don't have to really defend her. Like, I mean, people might freak out about it, but you're like, look, that character has no filter. That character is going to say whatever's in their mind at that time. If that's what comes out of their mind, if that's what they're thinking, like that's that character, and that's that character staying true to that character. Now, if you just started writing it and you started throwing things out there that doesn't make sense for your character, or like say if you took like a character and made them sound another character, most fans are going to pick that up and be like, this doesn't feel right. I don't like this. Yeah. This doesn't sit well. But with Cindy, I mean, she's just really fun, because writing her, there's literally times where she says some twisted stuff, and I have a dark sense of humor, and she makes me laugh. And it's weird because I feel psychotic because I'm writing the words and she's making me laugh while I'm typing them. So I don't know. And I remember telling David Wall, our editor-in-chief, and I'm like, I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign. He's like, normally it's good. And I was like, I hope people are laughing with me. And they're not just like, what the hell is this person talking about? Like for the new issue of Cindy that's coming up, there's literally a full scene where I was alone in my house doing the voices from all the different characters, and I was cracking myself up before I typed it.
We need to get that on video. That would be fun to see.
I don't know. It's definitely interesting. Like, you ever walk by my office and the door is open, and if I'm typing up a script or adding things to it, especially when I do sound effects, like I'm making the noises, like I'm just like trying to sound them out, like so we can type them up.
I love that. You know, Cindy has taken on zombies. She's taken on Krampus and Christmas. But why the Tooth Fairy?
Well, you got to read the issue, and you'll see why. Because it's not necessarily she's targeting the Tooth Fairy. It's just you don't need to read any of our other stuff to kind of know what's going on. We kind of fill you in right away. But it slightly spins out of all the story. Like, all these stories are slowly building on Cindy's personality and Cindy's character arc. It's slower because like you don't want it to be like bad to good or like instantly overnight. But I mean, who's to say she'll ever be good? It's just that she's building onto this. Like, we did the May the 4th cosplay special. In that, we did a Cinderella short story, and in that we introduced her friend Gerald. And so, to spoil a little bit of the beginning,
good
of the
old Gerald.
Little Gerald the raccoon. He's not a special raccoon. He's just a raccoon that lives in Colorado. We start off the Cinderella versus Tooth Fairy. She's living homeless in the woods in Colorado. And
Yep, they're all around here somewhere.
And she hasn't seen Gerald since the last time she had to cut him loose. And the Tooth Fairy happens to live in this general area, and the Tooth Fairy needs bones and teeth to survive. So she might not necessarily be going after human bones, but she might be taking other types of bones to keep her alive. And then that kind of brings her face to face with Cindy, and puts them at odds.
So the synopsis for this month's release indicates that there are ramifications into the greater Grimm universe. How much can you elaborate on that?
Well, I mean, I can't spoil too much of that, but also too, what happened is this story got so big that it couldn't technically fit into this Grimm spotlight. So you'll see what that means as you get towards the end of this story. But then it's gonna tie into this new Cinderella book we have coming out in January. It's the Grimm Universe Presents Quarterly Cinderella Fairy World Massacre. So that'll be the story that was there, just it became too big, and there's too much stuff that kind of naturally grew in that story, in the process of that story. And I was just talking with David Wall, and he's just like, well, why don't we just make it bigger and go? And I was like, all right, you're not going to twist my arm. And so that's what we're going to do. So you'll have this 32 story. It'll be a complete story, but it's going to seed into the next giant Cinderella story coming up.
And will there be more of Cinderella in 2023 after January as well? Or
hopefully, if people keep buying all of our books. But that's being a small publisher. That's the biggest thing for us, is that we got to make sure that people are buying them. And if people are buying them, it means that people are liking them. And if people are liking them, we're going to keep making more of them. I don't see this being the end of Cinderella. She's actually one of our most popular characters. And so we don't have anything currently on the plans for 2023, but it doesn't mean that's not going to happen. It just means we haven't gotten that far into that schedule yet.
So she may continue her trend of destroying all of our childhood characters. The Easter Bunny, Jack
Flag
Frost,
Day.
the Great Pumpkin. The list goes on. She's going to take them all out.
We'll see where she goes next. I mean, after you read these, you'll kind of see where her character's going. So it might not necessarily be every holiday, but it doesn't mean she can't show up on those holidays and cause a little mayhem.
Dave, thanks again for dropping by to give us the scoop on our serial killer princess. Cinderella takes on the Tooth Fairy later this month. I think it's October 26th.
Yeah, 26th. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's probably the weirdest Cinderella we've come out with. So, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. Hopefully a good thing. But it's super weird. You got gnomes, you got changelings, you got Tooth Fairy, you got pixies. It's a lot of craziness coming up.
I can't wait. I think it's going to be great. I think the more bizarre, the stranger it is, the better, honestly.
I'm with you there.
If you'd like to learn more about Cinderella, stop by Zenescope.com, and midway down the homepage, you'll see a section entitled Cinderella 101. She's tackled evil stepmothers, zombies, Krampus, and more over many, many years in Grimm fairy tales, all before facing the Tooth Fairy in this month's Grimm Spotlight. Moving forward now, let's take a look at some of the exciting events coming up on the Zenescope calendar for October 2022. This month's new releases have a Halloween/horror flair, starting with the Grimm Tales of Terror Quarterly, which focuses on the Cthulhu mythos, an H.P. Lovecraft cosmic creature that oversees a dastardly plot that will have ramifications across multiple series and well into 2023. Want to see your favorite Grimm Universe heroines and villainesses donning the cosplays of pop culture's most famous monsters? You're in luck, because the 2022 Horror Pinup Special releases on October 19th, and it's followed by the Grimm 2022 Halloween Special, an oversized issue that tackles the reality show exploits akin to Squid Games, where contestants compete for fame and fortune while attempting to avoid torture and death. Meanwhile, at the end of the month, Sky finds herself amidst cult-worshipping deities in the latest Grimm Fairy Tales Volume 2, number 65. Everyone's favorite serial killer princess, Cinderella, slashes her way through another insane story following the Tooth Fairy in this month's Grimm Spotlight on October 26th. The new metal comic, metal cards, and sticker set have all been released for October and are available for subscription on Zenescope.com, along with the new 2022 Collectors Club editions for board game cosplay and catch 'em throughout the month. And Elias Chadzudis' Steampunk Wonderland series returns on Wonderland Wednesday, October 26th. Our October featured artist of the month is Sun Kumanaki. She has a sticker set and 7 new metal cards and 3 new art prints, available for just $40 throughout the month. Starting on October 19th, the 13 Days of Halloween commence. Every order placed at Zenescope.com from the 19th through the 31st will include a free sticker that corresponds to the Man-Goat and Bunnyman poster. Every sticker is a winner, and the grand prize Dracula sticker is a trip for 2 to Halloween Horror Nights 2023 in Orlando, Florida. So request your limited edition poster, then start collecting your stickers so you can load up on all the amazing Zenescope treats for Halloween. Lastly, we're hosting a horror-themed virtual con on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, October 19th through the 21st. Ralph, Jason, Noah, and Casey will have exclusive collectibles, artist interviews, games, giveaways, and more. Plus a Halloween costume contest with grand prizes such as a Fire tablet and Apple AirPods. That's Wednesday through Friday, October 19th through the 21st. Times vary, so check your email and social media for more details. Our podcast Word of the Month is here, and with the wave of her magic wand in an effort to get Cinderella to the ball, the fairy godmother turns a pumpkin into a golden carriage. The pumpkin, of course, is also one of the most recognizable attributes of Halloween, so the October podcast Word of the Month is pumpkin. Our featured guest this month has one of the most diverse and fascinating career paths I've ever seen, spanning multiple countries from ballet to modeling to music to wrestling to film and television. She's CJ Perry, a multi-talented performer who can do it all. Known as Lana for all of our WWE fans out there, she cemented her reputation in the wrestling world as a villainess, alongside legendary wrestler Rusev, whom she married in real life. Outside of the ring, CJ has been part of the girl group No Means Yes. She's been a backup dancer for Nelly, Pink, and Usher. She's been featured in The Game, Pitch Perfect 1 and 2, Banshee, the sci-fi action flick Cosmic Sin with Bruce Willis, as well as a slew of reality shows like The Real Housewives of Atlanta, Total Divas, Total Bellas, and this month's celebrity-packed reboot of VH1's The Surreal Life. I sat down with this incredible star to talk about her unique journey, playing a baddie in the WWE, her favorite horror movies, and of course, her experience living under the same roof with celebrities like Dennis Rodman, Kim Coles, and Frankie Muniz in VH1's The Surreal Life. Here's what CJ had to say. Today we are jumping up and down here in the ring as we are joined by the amazing CJ Perry. CJ, welcome to Everything Zen.
Thank you for having me.
You've been billed as the villain Lana in the WWE, hailing from Moscow, Russia. But in reality, Catherine Joy Perry was born in Gainesville, Florida, and grew up in Latvia. Talk to me about your parents, your siblings, language and culture in your household. What was growing up like for you?
It was very unique. Yesterday, I was talking to one of my classmates in acting class, and I felt like we had really connected because both of us bounced back and forth, and she bounced back and forth from the UK to America. And I feel like if you don't have that experience, like only people that do that can fully relate and understand how it affects you literally growing up, because as a kid you want to fit in, at least I did. And so moving from like America to Latvia at 5 years old, and being American by passport, and then being a minority. I grew up as a minority, and so if I turn around and I tell Americans that I feel I identify as being a minority, they look at you crazy. But it's like, no, my defining years from 5 to 18, I was the minority. I was the only American, and they did not like Americans. We were not the popular person on the block. They go home, see you later. And so that really impacted me in a way that I think it helps me be a lot more empathetic to people's different journeys of life, and don't judge a book by its cover. That's like for sure. And also, I think how I approach discipline and work ethic was so defined by the Russians and Eastern Europeans and Latvians. They take everything very serious. You don't do growing up 20 different things. You don't do 7 different sports. You pick one sport and you become a professional at it. You don't do football, basketball, volleyball, dance, ballet, gymnastics, soccer, swimming. It's like, oh, you want to be a hockey player? You wake up at 4 years old, you wake up at 4 a.m. every single day and you go train to be a hockey player, or you go figure skating or ballet or gymnastics. And so that commitment to literally at such a young age doing 40 hours a week of ballet, when at least 40 hours when you're 9, 10 years old, really, really defines your ideas of work ethic and discipline. And they're very intense over there. Think very Nadia Comaneci, think very like Soviet Union regime. They're still like that. That's how they approach everything. And that really defined me. It defined how I approach things, but it also kind of defined how I had to kind of change my mindset. It's still working on how I talk to people sometimes, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm real intense, very Eastern European versus like American. We're a little nicer, I feel, than that. And it's just a different culture. They've been oppressed for years, war, the Holocaust, World War I, World War II, just a lot. And you just feel it. And so that was like my environment. But then I had my family that was very American and Christian and had these values, the American values, like never give up, the sky's the limit. Everything is possible. Nothing's impossible if you work hard. And that's not everyone's mentality there.
And you did work extremely hard. And I read that, of course, you were a very accomplished ballerina like your mother, and you even danced at some of the best dance companies in the world. What sort of changed? Because you were in New York City at the time doing dance, and then all of a sudden you relocated to Tallahassee to go to Florida State.
Yes, I relocated because I wanted to have an American experience. And so I grew up in a magnet school, and I did 40 hours a week ballet and did my academics as well. So I got into Alvin Ailey Conservatory, and I got into Juilliard as well. But Alvin Ailey was a more different experience. I felt like Juilliard was much more similar to my experience that I had the past 8 years. And I'm a big person of like, I want new experiences. I want to be exposed to new ways of life. I want to meet new people. And I felt like it was great the first 6 months at Alvin Ailey. But then I realized that this is going to be my only time to really experience something truly normal America, because I didn't have prom. I didn't have American high school. And I knew I was going to be an entertainer. I knew I was going to be like in the arts, and there's nothing really normal about that. So my dad he wanted me to either go to Florida State or UCLA, and Florida State has one of the best dance schools, state dance schools, like if you take a state university in the nation. So yeah, I went to Florida State because I wanted to experience I wanted to be exposed to other people besides just dancers or just artists. And Florida State, you have tailgating and football and baseball and the whole college book experience, and FAMU is there, and a
Florida
huge
State Cowgirls.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so thankful. It really had me grow as a person. And I think to be a really good artist and storyteller, you need to have more life experiences so you can bring that to the table.
Absolutely. So you talked about like wanting to be in the entertainment industry. Who or what influenced you most as a kid?
Well, Mark Verzhnikov was one of my heroes for sure. He actually went to my school. So that like, I love that he crossed over, like he was on Sex and the City. And I always was like, I'm going to do that. Like, I'm going to not just be a dancer. I'm going to dance, but I'm going to cross over into all these other avenues. So actually, now that we're talking about this, I'm like, wow, I've done that. So that's cool. Pat on the shoulder. But also Michael Jordan was very inspiring to me. I think because he's an athlete. And I think always kind of slightly identified as an athlete as well, because ballet is very athletic and discipline like athletes. But with him, it always resonated with me that he didn't make his varsity team. And then he became like one of the best, greatest of all time. And he worked really hard. And I just identified with that. Like, you get a lot of rejection and a lot of no's in entertainment. And you just have to be able to persevere and be resilient and get back up and keep knocking, because one of those doors are going to open.
Well, speaking of rejections, so you graduate from FSU and you're now in Los Angeles looking for your big break, sort of early 2000-ish. What was that period of time like for you? Was it the typical starving artist, actor type of scenario where you're auditioning, searching for an agent, looking for commercials?
Oh, yeah. All the cliches, most of the cliches, definitely. I've lived through. I joined a girl group in Atlanta right out of college. And so I did that for a year and a half. I learned a lot. I learned how to sing, essentially, at least carry a melody. And then I moved to LA because I went with my friends. I was broke. I had no money. And we went to Vegas. One of my friends was like, I'll pay for you to go. And I got really lucky. I took $50 and I made $5,000 out of it. And so I was like, this is a sign. I'm moving to LA. I'm taking this money and I'm taking my car and I'm moving to LA. And I was just so lucky and so blessed to have many different friends or fellow dancers that would give me their couch to crash on. There was times that I would sleep in my car because the first 6 months I didn't have a house. So I would just, crash people's couches. That one family let me stay in their guest room for 3 months, which was just like, I look back and I'm like, wow, thank you. And I was able just to book a lot of dance jobs and a lot of auditions, but got a couple lucky breaks. And from there, it was just like more and more, direct booking. And actually with Pitch Perfect and Surreal Life, which is really crazy. Both of those landed, were given to me. So it's like you go out there and you hustle and you work hard, you get no's, a lot of them. And you got to figure out how to pay your bills. So you start doing, dancing at bar mitzvahs and go-go dancing and hustling. And I'll never forget for Pitch Perfect, I was like what you were saying too, trying to get agents, people telling you you're too old already. You're 22. It's like, okay. And I was at a pool party. I think I was drunk. And I got a call from my agent saying, you booked Pitch Perfect. We need you in Baton Rouge tomorrow. And I am so thankful for that. It was such a blessing when it came to financially, huge. I was on the job for 3 months. I still get residual checks from that. And also just such an amazing experience that I had. I met so many new people, met so many friends. So that was incredible.
I want to backtrack just for a second because you talked about No Means Yes, the girl group that was on part of Neo's record. Did you ever know that you had vocal talent? I mean, at any point in time that you were growing up, did you think, oh, I definitely can sing. I could be a professional musician?
I knew I could kind of carry a melody, but I wouldn't say crazy singer was the thing. I knew I had like a cute tone, but I would just get so shy that I couldn't like project. And so it was really being in the girl group, and we had crazy intense camps. Like literally they would make us do insane things like run for 2 hours while singing. Yeah,
Really?
It's insane. It's literally insane. Like for every single day, 2-hour voice classes. So it really, really, really developed my like confidence, and confidence is a big thing. And yeah, I learned how to sing essentially. Singing is also can be very technical. Some people just naturally do it. Like they do all, like the way they move their mouth, like just maybe naturally so they can sing, but also a lot of it can be learned as long as you have somewhat of a tone to work with. And I'm talking about basic singing. I'm not talking about like a Whitney Houston by any means.
Right.
Like, okay, I can sing like a cute little song and not hurt your ears.
And not use auto-tune. So, yeah. So it's, again, your career trajectory, I think, is one of the most fascinating I've ever seen, because it touches on so many different areas, from dance and film and television to music to wrestling. So you're acting, singing, and then all of a sudden you're signing with WWE and you meet your future husband, the legendary wrestler Rusev. Was it love at first sight?
It was. I remember meeting him with all these other people. It was my first day in WWE. I got signed. It was a 6-month tryout, super intense. They called me and said I was signed on my birthday, which was a gift for sure. It was amazing. So I showed up and I met him, but I like vaguely remember him. He really remembers this day. And then the following day I went to the tanning bed and I'm like, oh, are you a wrestler? Because he's super jacked. And he's like, why do you think this? And I'm like, well, because you're kind of a big guy. And are you from Russia? And he's like, no, Bulgaria. And I was like, oh my God, I toured there and I lived in Latvia. And so it was like instantly an Eastern European connection that we had. And then on the third day, I show up to promo class with Dusty Rhodes, who is an absolute legend in wrestling. Yep. He was in charge of acting class and how to create your characters. I started my promo speaking Russian, and then I switched to English, and he loved it. And then he pulled me aside and he's like, I want you to work with Rusinov. He couldn't even say Rusev, his name right, which was kind of his shtick with his Southern accent. And so, yeah, when I found him, I'm like, they want us to work together. And the following day we started writing promos together and shooting stuff. And, I'm super crazy neurotic with that stuff. I was doing whole vignettes with him, directing it.
That's so awesome.
So yeah, I got really lucky. And from there, we probably started dating like 2 months later, but we were instantly very close friends.
Now, playing a villain and an instigator can be a lot of fun, but was it ever difficult, especially for fans, to separate Lana from CJ? Was social media really challenging for you in that regard?
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. I mean, there were times that it got really challenging. I think during the pandemic, it got the most challenging because that's all you receive. So prior pandemic, you go out there and you're going to say this and then they're going to boo, and they always usually do. And so there's just so much fun and like stirring the pot and having a relationship with the crowd. Like it is an emotional connection and a relationship we have with the crowd. And my job as a villain is to make sure all these people boo the shit out of me. So then the baby face, the good guy, comes out and kicks my ass and everyone cheers or slaps the shit out of me and everyone's laughing in my face. That is my job. And if I don't do that, then I'm not a good villain. And also if I'm not a good villain, then why do you need a hero to save? And so really understanding that storytelling aspect and the essential part of being a villain to the story, I don't know. I loved it. And I think I don't know, maybe I'm good at stirring the pot and I enjoy it. So it's funny to me a little bit. And when you enjoy something, it comes across. And so people we like to see people have fun, even if we kind of love to hate it. So that was great. Sometimes it would get to me here and there, stuff on Twitter. It would usually be more from Total Divas, I think it would get to me. When I am a character, I'm like, no, that's my character. But with Total Divas, people, they would still sometimes like edit things certain ways. And when people come for you personally, it's definitely a little bit more hurtful and a little bit, just a little bit more hurtful. But I understood that was what I chose. Like when you step into reality TV, like, or anything, people are going to love you and hate you. But during the pandemic, it was really hard because you don't get that gratification of people booing you, and you don't get like that emotional connection and that energy. All you see is like hateful comments. And so that definitely got to me a little bit. Fortunately, during the pandemic, I became a good guy. And it switched. So that was halfway in, it changed. And I'm very thankful because that was pretty brutal. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. My wife and I enjoy watching Ms. and Mrs. And
I
I know
them.
you've been on, several reality shows, but you and your husband would be terrific on a show like that. Miro and Mrs. Has that ever come up as a possibility?
It's been discussed. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, speaking of reality shows, let's talk about The Surreal Life, which premieres on Monday, October 24th on VH1. And if it sounds familiar to our listeners, that's because it is a reboot of the series that ran for several seasons in the early 2000s. What can you tell us about the show and what makes it different this time around?
Well, a big part, I think the biggest difference is the cell phone. And so that really, at least for me personally, I was like, whoa, I'm really codependent on my phone. And so I was a big fan of the show. So I actually watched it like a crazy person when it was on. But the diligent person that I am, I wanted to do a lot of research on it again. And so I rewatched everything, and it was fascinating to be like, oh, they went to the telephone, like they went and, and I forgot about that. I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting how they're going to do this. And then we found out they're taking our phone. And so if it's one, like the addiction to social media, if it's the addiction to whatever you are on your phone, if it was just so hard. I didn't have an alarm. Like everything is on my phone, my alarm, my music, my auto books, my meditation, my workouts, my, texting with my family, calling my family. Also, the hardest thing was not having Google. So I could Google the people I don't know on the show. Or things I don't know. Like I'm so much more smart because I have that instant access to educating myself. Like, oh, I don't know how to spell that word. Let me Google it. Oh, I don't know what that is. Let me Google it. And I'm so thankful I don't have to walk around with a dictionary, but I guess I needed to bring a dictionary and an alarm. And I don't know, what else do we play? What do we play music and stuff on? A Kindle, maybe? I don't know. So that's definitely a different aspect of it. I think that social experiment part of it for me and other people too, I think was definitely challenging.
What are some of your home pet peeves, things that you need in your environment, things that you don't like? For instance, do you like when things are organized and neat? Do you need space and quiet? Are you a sound sleeper? Do you like having white noise?
White noise. I like things completely dark. I started to implement this actually was in WWE. They would bring in different people to talk about wellness and self-improvement. And there was this one person that came in and was like, hey, you need to put your phone not next to you. You need to put like further. It needs to be on silent. Everything needs to be dark. Everything needs to be silent. And I used to like have the curtains open, keep the TV on. And I was like, let me just try this. And wow. It was a game changer. I would sleep so much longer. My sleep would be so much deeper. And so for me, light makes a big difference. Like I can almost even sleep through noise, but light is, whoa, I sleep much deeper with full darkness. So I have blackout curtains. Luckily on Surreal Life, everything was blacked out. So that was good. Tamar Braxton was my roommate. And so that was a lot of fun. And she was pretty organized. Like we were she wasn't crazy OCD organized, which was nice. I like things organized, but I like things organized, but I have to have someone help me organize because that's not my first foot in the door.
Right. Was there anybody on the show that you didn't get along with as much?
You're going to have to tune in to see the drama. No, it was very interesting meeting so many different people from different walks of life and different experiences. And I'm so captivated by unique people. And so I guess you could say I'm captivated by being captivated. And I feel like you have a lot of that on the show. Yeah, I mean, we have Frankie Muniz, Stormy Daniels, August Aslin, Tamar Braxton, Dennis Rodman, Kim Coles, Manny MUA. We're all from different walks of life, all different careers, religions, ethnicities, cultures, experiences. And it was just fascinating to live with all these people with no doors and hear their story, you know? I mean, August, I met him as August, and first and foremost, I didn't know who August was, and I didn't learn who August was or how, like, any headlines until after the fact. So that was, like, interesting. And same with Stormy Daniels, same thing. And Tamar, and my experience with Tamar is so different than, let's say, some headlines were out there. I mean, she brought so much awareness of mental health to me and her journey of mental health and what she's done to, like, help improve herself and help improve her mental health, and how the tools she's gotten for herself really inspired me to go on that journey and really bring awareness that my anxiety is a form of, like, neglecting my mental health. And so I'm very thankful. Everyone was I learned something from everyone.
That's great. Now I have to switch gears just for a second, because from your Instagram, it looks like you've attended some really cool premieres for Halloween Ends, Interview with the Vampire. What is your favorite scary movie or show, and why?
It's such a hard question because I get really scared. I'm a big scaredy cat. I really enjoyed Halloween Ends. Shining, I enjoy, but, like, really, like, terrified enjoy. I had to watch it under a blanket.
You can't have those blackout curtains up watching that.
And I had to watch it, like, with 7 people. Yeah, I don't know. I guess, I don't know. Scream is funny. I get really scared. So if someone's not there, like, I couldn't even finish Chucky. Like, I was, like, so terrified. And then I tried to find Liv Morgan. She was just champion in WWE. She's one of my really close friends. And I went to Halloween Ends with her. And she's a diehard horror fan. Diehard. And so she's tried to get me to watch it with her, like, 7 times, and I can't get past the first 7 minutes. I'm, like, trembling. So yeah, I'm a big scaredy cat when it comes to that.
That's okay. I mean, we just watched Hocus Pocus.
Oh my God, I love Hocus Pocus. Okay. Yeah. Yes, I forgot about that. Thank you. Love Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, there you go. Last question for you. Following the Surreal Life, is there anything you'd like to tease, or any projects coming up? Will you return to wrestling, singing, dancing?
Well, there's always TikTok for dancing. I mean, of course, I would love to do something in wrestling if it was right, if the story's right, if it makes sense. Absolutely, there's nothing like it. It really became the love of my life. When it comes to any type of career I've done, it was like the perfect merge of everything I love, you know, dance and singing, you're in front of a live crowd, and then acting. A lot of what I do is more in television and movies. I haven't done a play on a big level yet. So you don't get the instant gratification from television and movies. So it's this one place that is like, you get both sides. You get the television part of it, the scripted part of it, but also the live reaction of the people. And then also it's a sport, and I was always drawn to more athletic things. So then there's that, and then it's like, then there's the modeling part of it, and the action figures, and the trading cards, and the merchandise. And it's like a place that I had found that I could do all this stuff and then entertain people and put smiles on people's faces, and not necessarily be taken too seriously. I love serious art, and I love deep, profound, that moves your heart and your soul. But I also like pop music, and I like things that just like make us smile and entertain us. And I miss that, and I love that. And I really hope Surreal Life will do that. I really hope people watching it will laugh. I hope we make them laugh. I hope we make them cry at some point, because there is a crying in there too, but not in a bad way, you know, in a good way. I hope we take people on a crazy ride and bringing more awareness of mental health as well. And I really, really hope that we make people smile and give a good feel thing. So yeah, I'm always working on things. cjperry.com. You can subscribe and see all the latest, as well as all the behind the scenes stuff. I will be definitely talking about the show, Surreal Life, like after it airs. I'm going to be talking about that episode, and also the things that probably didn't make it, because you can't.
I like that. Behind the scenes.
Yes. So subscribe. And yeah.
CJ, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. You definitely have made us smile. You've entertained us. Congrats on kicking butt in and out of the ring and surviving a house full of celebrities on the Surreal Life.
Thank you.
CJ Perry joins The Surreal Life, airing on VH1 beginning on Monday, October 24th, with new episodes airing every Monday. And you can follow all of her exploits in dance, music, acting, wrestling, and more at cjperry.com, as well as her Instagram handle at @TheCJPerry. Just like a mummy, we're wrapping things up on this edition of Everything Zen, October 2022. A very special thanks to Noah, Zenescope publisher and Cinderella expert Dave Franchini, and our featured guest, CJ Perry. I'm your host, Mark Sells. Thank you for listening. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator and author of Sherlock Holmes, once said, "Where there is no imagination, there is no horror." Have a safe and happy Halloween, everyone, and by all means, let your imagination run wild. We'll see you all again next month, right here on Everything Zen.